Hey YouTube, it's time to look at Crown Zenith. Now you're going to notice that this video is going to be a top 5 for Crown Zenith instead of a top 10. Unfortunately, I don't think there are enough new cards in the set that are worth talking about to make a top 10, and even the top 5 itself can be a little shaky. Obviously, this is new cards. We're not talking about reprints or the alt arts or any of the stuff from the Galarian Gallery, because that's a whole different ball of wax. There's some amazing art there we'll look at when we get to the art highlights. But as for Crown Zenith itself, this is a set that most players are going to want to just pick up singles for. If you get a box like an ETB or something, it's not going to be in the world. Somewhere to store your cards and stuff. But ultimately, Crown Zenith is a collector set first and foremost. It's got some amazing artwork in it. If you do want specific artwork, I still recommend buying the singles on TCG Player or whatever your local equivalent is, whether it's Card Market or whatever. But Crown Zenith is definitely not a collector heavy set. And I think in terms of meta impact, it's going to be very similar to Pokemon Go, where there will be some noticeable changes, but it's not going to completely upend the entire meta. So with that said, let's look at the art. This art is obviously great in this set. We're just going to look at a few of them. There's obviously a huge amount of amazing art in this set. If you are interested in seeing the entirety of the gallery, either the regular cards or the Galarian Gallery itself, do hit up my website. The link will be in the description for the visual set list. Definitely hit that up. As you can see, all the amazing art for this set. With that said, we are starting with the art. I'm going to show you two of my favorite cards from the Galarian Gallery. So this is Hisuian Zoroark VStar and Giratina VStar. So Giratina V already got an amazing alternate art by Shinji Kanda in Lost Origin, and now the V-Star also has some amazing artwork by Akira Igawa. Just phenomenal artwork for this Giratina. Obviously, this image is a scan of a Japanese card, so it's not as brilliant and pretty as it will be when you actually have the card in your hand, but the art is really cool. Just seeing Giratina kind of in this dimension that's almost like a hell. I love it too much. It's a tome, right? And then Hisuian Zoroark V-Star is really cool too. I'm not familiar with this artist, but the art looks really awesome, and I look forward to playing around with some Hisuian Zoroark V-Star after rotation. I do think it's going to be not as impacted by rotation as some of the other decks. Whether or not it's actually good after rotation, we'll see when we start testing it. A couple of the other cards we're going to look at here are also in the Galarian Gallery. We have the Leafeon V-Star with artwork by Jito Sasumo, and Gardenia's Vigor. Gardenia's Vigor, of course, gets a highlight because there's a Blossom in it, and Blossom is Blossom, which is my favorite Pokemon. So really cool art. I do hope I can pull that, or at least grab one off a trade, but I do really like that card. And of course, any set that has Oddishes in it has to get a little spotlight. We do want to see the Oddishes because they evolve up into Blossom, but in this set we actually do get a Blossom too. It's been 7 years, but we finally have another Blossom. I'm so excited. It's complete bulk. It's a terrible card, unfortunately, but it is a Blossom. We do get a new Blossom, so yoo-hoo. Yay. I just hope at some point we'll get a Blossom X in the Scarlet Violet series, and it'll be actually playable or super good. But in the meantime, we do have the Crown Zenith Blossom, and there's finally a new Blossom. Took them long enough. The last one was an Ancient Origins. The art's really great. I love more than out of these three. I kind of don't like the Gloom art very much, but I do love the Oddish artwork by Ryoma. I'm gonna butcher this. Uratsuka. Really good artwork. Very happy to see Oddish and its line, especially Blossom, here in Crown Zenith. It's making me super happy about this set. As for some honorable mentions, we're actually going to start first with some reprints. So there are a number of reprints in Crown Zenith. Obviously, they're not new cards, so they're not going to get highlighted here. And they're not reprints in the sense that they are new again and are going to become legal after not being legal. These are cards that are already legal and they're staying legal. But they're reprints in the sense that they have a new regulation mark. So most of these cards had a deregulation mark before. So stuff like Crushing Hammer and Great Ball and Switch would have rotated. The exception here, of course, is, I believe, Rare Candy and Ultra Ball. Ultra Ball, of course, had an F regulation mark already. And Rare Candy got a reprint in Pokemon Go with a new regulation mark. However, these are now all F regulation mark, which means they would not rotate in April. They're all safe, but something that's also important to be aware of, these 4 cards here are also getting G regulation mark prints in Scarlet and Violet, and maybe more of them once we see the full reveal tonight, actually. As I'm recording this, the full reveal for Scarlet and Violet base set will be tonight. Very, very excited for that. These 4 cards, as Crushing Hammer, Pokemon Catcher, Energy Search, and Ultra Ball, all will have G regulation mark prints in Scarlet and Violet base set, so they are not going away for another year after that. So they'll be safe for about 2 years from the time they're printed. These cards here, these 6 cards, are all receiving new artwork. So these are not reprints in the sense that they are extending their legality, but they are new artwork, which is very cool. So you see Leon here will still rotate in April, but because it has the deregulation mark. Lost Vacuum still has the F regulation mark. Nessa has the deregulation mark, so she will rotate. Raihan with the E regulation mark. Rescue Carrier with the E regulation mark. And Trekking Shoes with the F regulation mark. So these are all same regulation marks they had originally, so they are not changing their legalities. They're going to rotate the same card, or same time rather, as their original prints. But their new art is pretty awesome, so I wanted to highlight it here. With that, we start in the single cards, individual highlight cards, starting with Zamazunta VStar. So Zamazunta VStar has Giga Impact, does 220 damage. This Pokemon can't attack during next turn. Pretty bog standard. And Star Shield is its V-Star power. So you may use this ability during your turn. During your opponent's next turn, all of your Pokemon take 100 less damage from your opponent's Pokemon's attacks. And obviously you can't use more than 1 V-Star power in a game. So, makes a very, very bulky Pokemon. A bunch of bulky Pokemon, as it turns out. Makes them very, very difficult to knock out. Other than that, though, 220, pretty standard, kind of low damage output, unfortunately. Not the best. But not a bad card. And you do have support, at least into rotation, with stuff like Metal Saucer, so you do have ways to accelerate energy to it. You can accelerate to the Zamazunta V on the bench, for example. But maybe not a bad card, of course, but it's still worth looking at. But I think there's just better in the set. Regigigas VStar. This one was actually really frustrating to test against. Unfortunately, this card, at least until rotation, is kind of underwhelming. And I say it's underwhelming because of Lugia. I know somebody's already going to cringe, but not necessarily Lugia itself, but because of Yveltal. So the amazing Yveltal that has the instant knockout effect pretty much nullifies any point of having a high amount of HP on Pokemon. So Regigigas VStar has 300 HP, which is a crazy amount of HP for a VStar. That is the highest we've seen on a VStar. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter how much HP you have. If you're Yveltal, it just knocks you out. So yes, you can run Big Parasol to shield yourself from that, but they can just Lost Vacuum that away and knock you out anyway. So if Regigigas VStar does become popular, maybe Lost Vacuum sees its way into Lugia decks, but as of right now, Regigigas is just kind of in limbo. Unfortunately, with rotation, it also would lose Powerful Colorless Energy and Capture Energy, both of which are pretty important to the way the deck would want to function. Although you could always build it with Melanie and Double Turbo like we did for our testing of Crown Zenith. But Regigigas seems like it might be better after rotation anyway. The V-Star Power Star Order says you may use this ability during your turn only if your opponent has exactly 1 prize card remaining. Discard one of your opponent's bench Pokemon and all cards attached to it. So this is a very, very niche V-Star Power. You have to have basically the exact right situation to pull it off to make it useful at all. Now it is an ability, so that's something. So if you can knock out whatever it is in front of you with Giga Impact, that's cool. Maybe your opponent has a very, very bulky or shielded Pokemon on active. You escape rope it to pull your Regigigas VStar to the active spot, and their bulky Pokemon to the active. And they only have, that one other Pokemon. Well, you can discard it and then knock out the flimsy Pokemon. No big deal. The problem I see right now is that that's just not happening. Too many decks have too many Pokemon out at once. Stuff like Palkia and Mew both want very full benches. So the chances of you ever having this be useful are just not very high. And then Giga Impact, I mean, it does, 10 more damage than the Giga Impact on Zamazunta VStar. So that's something, I guess, but it's still not really worth talking about. Damage is decent at least because you can put Powerful Colorless Energy on it. But it's still underwhelming. It is, of course, this Pokemon is designed to be a bulky Pokemon with Yveltal around. It's not all it's cracked up to be. Again, definitely worth considering after rotation. Maybe rotation fixes it instead of hurting it like it looks like, but we'll see. Mewtwo. So this is getting an honorable mention, not because of how good it's going to be out of the gate, but because of how good it could theoretically be. So Gardevoir X in Scarlet and Violet base set has an ability that attaches energy from your psychic energy from your discard pile, and you put 20 damage on that Pokemon to attach an energy. So you could power up Limit Break in one turn, so instantly power up the Mewtwo, and then throw it into the active spot and do up to 180 damage to your opponent's Pokemon without a Choice Belt, without a Defiant Band, none of that, right? So that's very good on a single prizer. This could be a great return KO Pokemon, right? You don't want to necessarily put up something bulkier after they've knocked you out, so you throw this up, and then Gardevoir just attaches and nukes whatever it is in front of you. Whether that's a Luminion, for example, you just gust it up and knock it out and take 2 prize cards. I think this Mewtwo is very good. I don't think it's going to necessarily be good until Gardevoir X comes out, but this is definitely a card to grab a playset of just to have them, because it probably won't be that expensive out of the gate, but it will become expensive if it becomes a key player in Gardevoir. Zashian VStar is another card that did not quite make the top 5, but is still worth looking at. Obviously, Zashian V from Sword and Shield is a very good card, and was very, very good in its time. It's a bit, this hurts to say, a bit slow for the current format. God, that's crazy to say. It's too freaking fast. It's a little bit slow for the current format. But Zashian VStar, of course, something you can evolve up into. You're actually, if I'm not mistaken, doing less damage with Breaking Edge, but it's a shred effect, and then you have access to Star Sword. So if you want to hit into them with Zashian V, and then if it doesn't get knocked out, you can evolve them into the V-Star to boost your HP and then take advantage of Star Sword. So Star Sword is what you're really after here. 310 damage and does 30 damage to itself. Cool. It's basically an instant KO against Mew, or against a lot of Pokemon actually. Basically any of the V-Stars, including Regigigas, unless they have some sort of other damage reducing effect on them. Not a bad Pokemon, and probably one of the better honorable mentions, to be honest. But because Zashian V is kind of slow in the current format, I just don't know that Zashian VStar is going to be a star in Crown Zenith's format. Probably will squeeze by with a win or two here and there in some smaller tournaments, and maybe even get lucky with a top 8 in a regional or something, but I just don't see it doing. I don't see it consistently performing. Speaking of probably not being able to consistently perform, Rotom VStar, Scrap Pulse, 80 plus damage, put any number of Pokemon Tool cards from your discard pile into the Lost Zone. This attack does 40 more damage for each card you put in the Lost Zone in this way. And then its VStar power is Conversion Star. During your turn, you may use this ability, discard any number of cards in your hand, then draw that many cards. If you have 10 cards in your hand, you can nuke them all and draw 10 more. So not bad. Actually pretty good VStar power. The attack, though, is a bit lackluster. So in our testing, Rotom VStar did better than you might have expected. The unfortunate thing is it runs out of gas really fast. You get some early knockouts in, but its damage output is pretty limited. You get 3 or 4 cards in the Lost Zone, or in the discard pile. Throw them in the Lost Zone. It's 280, cool, it's a knockout. But at a certain point, you're going to just either run out of gas, or your opponent's going to heal or scoop up, or whatever it is that they need to do to make it so you just exhaust your deck and can't get your attacks off anymore. Unfortunately, Rotom VStar is in that range where just kind of, it's just missing enough to do what it needs to do. Now, it is hitting Lugia for weakness, so if they're not running Dunsparce, then you're golden, because you're going to not have to do very much. The problem is, and the problem comes from other decks, right? It comes from stuff like Duraludon, because you're going to be wanting to run Speed Lightning Energy for the draw, so that's a problem. So now you have to only use basic energy in order to attack into it, and then you're going to have to do a lot of damage to it in order to knock it out. So Duraludon is a bit rough. Mew is also a bit rough. 310 HP is quite a lot for Rotom VStar to deal with. So if you're not hitting into something weak to you, or if you're not hitting into something with fairly low HP, Rotom VStar can wear itself out fairly quickly. And unfortunately, something like Porygon 2 just isn't useful in the deck because of how cramped the deck's space is. So Rotom VStar, kind of like Zashian VStar, It'll sneak in some top 8s. It'll maybe even win something here and there, smaller events. But I don't expect it to be a big contender in Crown Zenith. All right, now for the actual top 5. Starting with some of the weaker ones, but let's get in there. Luxray. So Luxray has the ability Explosive Power. I think it's actually translated as explosiveness in English, but same idea. If this Pokemon is in your hand when you are setting up play, you may put it face down as your active Pokemon. So if you have played with, I believe it's Talonflame, I think from Steam Siege, same exact ability. Basically, Luxray during your opening turn can act as if it were a basic Pokemon and go straight down into play. So this is when you want to go second. Throw that Luxray down and then use its attack, Seeking Fangs. So Seeking Fangs does 50 damage. Not a ton, but it's something. Chip damage, right? Search deck for up to 2 trainer cards, reveal them, and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. So this allows you to get a supporter card for next turn, maybe an item card you're interested in, or a stadium card that you need, whatever it is, 2 trainer cards, put them into your hand, and that's pretty decent. And because it has 160 HP, it's not a bad starting Pokemon because your pump is going to have to actually put a little bit of effort in to knock it out. Unless they're mean, then they just mellow it to your face. But otherwise, they have to actually set up a little bit in order to knock that out. They can't just chip damage you away. And then finally, Luxray does have free retreat. So even if you don't necessarily want to use the attack, you can retreat out of it and put whatever you do want in the active spot on your first turn and take advantage of that. So Luxray, pretty decent Pokemon. May not necessarily see play right away with Crown Zenith's format, but I think it will see play after rotation when the format slows down a little bit. Number 4, Bedoof. So this is another option for decks that are running the Barrel Engine. So the other Bedoof, of course, from Brilliant Stars is the one you want to run right now. It has 70 HP, which is very good. However, this Bedoof has an ability Calm Countenance. As long as this Pokemon is on your bench, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks, both yours and your opponent's. So this is a built-in bench barrier on this Bedoof. Super nice effect. The only problem is this doesn't prevent you from taking damage from Sableye. So Sableye drops damage counters, doesn't do damage, so therefore it can eat right through Bedoof. And unfortunately, because of that 60 HP, that also means that Bedoof and another Bedoof, let's say you have 2 Bedoof down because you're building up your Bedoof army, it is just 2 knockouts for that Sableye, because they can just go 6 on one, 6 on the other, boom, knockout. So there is that disadvantage. So maybe you want to run a split of the 70 and the 60, or maybe you just wait for Sableye to go away and hope it works. Either way, this is a card worth knowing, worth having a playset of, so you can play with it. And then it has an attack Hyper Fang. But let's be honest, if you're attacking with this Bedoof, you've lost. You're not winning. Next up is Radiant Eternatus. This is the hype card of the set for a lot of people. I don't actually like it that much. It has seen a little bit of success in Japan, so that's why it's on this top 5. When we did our testing for Crown Zenith, both on stream and off stream, Radiant Eternatus was extremely underwhelming. It just felt like it was better just to evolve normally most of the time. So your mileage may vary. Maybe somebody will find the right combination of Pokemon VMAX and Radiant Eternatus to make it work. But I'm rambling, and we haven't even talked about the ability itself yet, so let's talk about the ability. The ability is Climactic Gate. When you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench during your turn, you may search your deck for up to 2 Pokemon VMAX and put them onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. If you use this ability, your turn ends. So you Quick Ball or Ultra Ball to get your Radiant Eternatus, throw it down, and immediately throw down 2 Urshifu VMAX, or 2 Duraludon VMAX, or 2 Mew VMAX, whatever Pokemon you feel like playing Eternatus in, right? Cool. It does end your turn, though, and now you have a single prize liability in play. And it's taking up a bench spot. I don't love it. I want to. It's really cool. The ability is awesome. But here's the thing. So often it just feels like it's too little too late. And if you whiff it turn 1, then it's like just a dead card in your deck anyway. It doesn't, I don't love it. But again, somebody will probably find the solution to make this super broken, and maybe it'll pop up a lot. It pops up quite a decent amount in Japan, so there is that chance that it'll show up here. It'll be some really cool deck that somebody will run with it. But in the meantime, I don't know. To me, it's a bit underwhelming. And then there's Power Beam for 200. So in something like Lost Box, maybe this can be a Lost Box card. Maybe for whatever reason you don't want the Charizard in your deck, and you want this instead. I don't see it, frankly, but you can power it up. Power Beam, do 200 damage. Number 2, Skysteals Skyseal Stone. Pokemon V this card's attached to can use this V-Star power. V-Star power is Star Order. You may use this ability during your turn. During your turn, when damage from the attack of your basic Pokemon V knocks out your opponent's active Pokemon V-Star or Pokemon VMAX, take 1 additional prize card, and you can't use more than 1 V-Star power per game. All right. This is a super niche card, but it is powerful. This is going to be a great card for Lost Box. This is going to be a great card for basically any basic heavy deck, right? So maybe Suicune comes back with this. We'll see. But the effect of getting that extra price card, if you've ever played in a format with ADP, or if you've played against Stoutland V, it's cracked, right? It's really good. It can really warp the price trade, right? Now, it's not as broken, obviously, as ADP, because you're only doing it once. But this effect is still very good, right? You're getting that extra prize card. You're turning that Luminion into a 3-prize Pokemon. So you get the knockout on, whatever it is. Let's say you get the knockout on the Urshifu. You gust up the Luminion, hit Skysteals Stone, and take your game from it, right? That's pretty decent. I definitely see this going into some versions of Lost Box. I think it'll sneak its way into other decks. A lot of decks have their own V-Star powers they'd rather use. Forest Stone, of course, is very, very popular for good reason. But this is definitely an option to keep in mind. Have a couple of them on hand. And finally, what I think is indisputably the best card in the set for players, Zamazunta. This card is cracked. This card is extremely powerful. If you are playing Lost Box, if you're playing any deck that can power up this Retaliate in a reasonable amount of time, this is a card you include because it is so good. So first off, Zamazunta has Metal Shield as its ability. If this Pokemon has any energy attached, it takes 30 less damage from attacks after applying weakness and resistance. So you're already taking 30 less damage, so it's effectively a 160 HP Pokemon. And then you have a Retaliate. Some of the highest damage on this attack I've ever seen for a freaking single prizer. So you have Metal Colorless Retaliate, 100 plus damage. If any of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn, this attack does 120 more damage. So that is 220 damage. Plus your Choice Belt is 250. You're hitting some good numbers with a single prizer. I think it's fantastic. You're picking on your opponent's Pokemon. You're doing whatever you need to do, right? This is an amazing inclusion for Lost Box. This is all over Japanese Lost Box list. It will see play. This card is extremely good. They knock out your Comfey. You throw Zamazunta up and just nuke them, right? This card is phenomenal. Pick up I don't necessarily a play set, but pick them up. Pick up your Zamazuntas. Have 2 or 3 of them on hand. Very, very worth grabbing. Definitely the best card in Crown Zenith, and I look forward to seeing it help Lost Box just push Lugia further down as much as it possibly can. With that said, thank you all for watching. I will see you in the next video.